Good morning, lovers. So, I really wanted to jump on and share about a decision that I made yesterday. And this was a decision I was mulling over for a few days, and it wasn't an easy decision, but it was a decision that I'm really proud of. Like, I'm really fucking proud of myself for this decision. So as I've shared a little bit on Facebook, I recently, just in the last couple of weeks, I've had a connection with a man that was really fun and exciting and flirty, and brought out this really beautiful, playful side of me that I've been really wanting to bring out, like just, you know, joking around and laughing, and like this inner child is what came out to play. And yeah, like this side of me that, you know, I've been quite, I suppose, deep in spiritual and having these really beautiful, deep, conscious conversations. And this was more of a playful energy, and which is really important as well. And so this man was bringing out this really playful energy, and I felt this connection with him, and the sexual chemistry was really really yummy. And I was like, whoa, you know. But what I did is I remained in curiosity rather than going into wow, this connection is amazing and this chemistry and rah, rah, rah. I was curious, and I was just curious about him and asking about him and getting to know him before getting caught up in this connection, which sometimes very often I find some people get so caught up in a connection with someone that a lot of red flags and boundaries go completely out the window, and then over time you give your power away and you lose yourself, and you know, this can end up being a narcissistic relationship. It can be abuse, this is extremity, right? And this is where we end up giving our power away, it ends up being heartbreak and suffering. So I'm not saying here, just want to be careful, just because if you have sexual chemistry with someone, it doesn't mean that that's going to end up being bad, right? It doesn't mean that. But what I'm saying is, if you find chemistry with someone or this really full-on connection, still be aware of any red flags, and please make sure you honor your boundaries. Okay? Because that is going to save you heartache in the long run, because it's so easy for us to get caught up in a new connection and start making decisions to spend time with them, to, you know, answer their calls, to reply to their text messages all the time. And before we know it, all our time and energy is going on to that person, and we've stopped doing the things that we love to do, right? So this is what I'm saying here, is just still be honoring to your boundaries. So what happened with me was I remained in this curiosity of getting to know this person a little bit, and yeah, I started to see some red flags, okay? And I'm not going to go into these red flags too much, because I'll do a separate video on red flags. But the main red flag that stood out for me was that he'd only just come out of a relationship with his ex-partner a few months ago. And the way that he spoke about her was still in a blame, was still in, it was still in this place of what she's done to him, and the issues that they're having, and all the problems that they're going through, and still dealing with stuff with her. Now, there's no way that I'm going to enter a connection with someone who hasn't cleared up what they've done what's happened in their past relationship, right? And there's this part of me that was like, well, I don't really want to be in a relationship with this guy. I was like, but we could just have some fun. We could just, you know, play, and we could explore some stuff, and we could do some tantra, and it would be really fun, right? This is part of me that was just trying to justify, I've wanted to explore more of this stuff with someone, and I'm very selective about who I explore intimately with, because what I also know is that my heart does get involved, that I can't just be intimate with someone and not allow my heart there to be a heart connection, because that's just how I am. And this is true for many women. I also know the oxytocin, right? The oxytocin that happens when, particularly more so for a woman, is the bonding chemical and the attachment. And I know that man is not a good connection for me, and I can't get myself involved. So as much as there was this massive part of me that just wanted this, to explore this chemistry with him and explore this intimacy, and intimacy is such a massive high value for me, I just knew that the red flags I was seeing were not worth it, all right? Because one of the things that I'm very conscious of is that if someone hasn't cleared what happened in their past connection, and they haven't done some healing, and they haven't looked at their part in it, and they haven't been self-responsible, and if they're holding resentment, any kind of resentment towards an ex-partner, I can guarantee that that is going to come up in the connection with me, right? I can guarantee that that is somehow going to be projected. And I mean, this will happen anyway, because, you know, sometimes we're not going to be fully healed, right? And stuff is always going to be triggered. But it's looking at, is that person willing, are they going to be willing to look at those triggers? Are they going to be willing to be responsible for those triggers, rather than projecting them onto the other person? And if that person is still in blame towards an ex-partner, then I can guarantee that it's going to be projected onto you, if it was me in the experience, onto me. It would be projected, and I would be the one being blamed, when it actually has nothing to do with me. I've just triggered something, right? And sometimes we'll blame, because when we get triggered, we'll blame, but is it like, can we go into then going into being self-responsible and seeing, oh, hang on, I realized that I was triggered by this thing that happened with an ex-partner, and I'm willing to look at that, and I can see that I projected onto you, and you know, is that person going to be willing to look at that stuff, right? So where I'm at with this guy is that although it's this beautiful sexual chemistry connection, that in itself is a bit of a red flag for me, right? But I had to look at the red flags that were way more important to me than the high, or the happy chemical high that I get by being around this person, right? And this is I can't even express how important this is, because this is the choice. When I made this choice yesterday, and I sent him a text, and about how I was feeling, then we spoke on the phone about it, and I just, yeah, it's and he wanted to see me in person, and I was like, that's not a good idea, because I know when I see him in person, the connection, I would just be like, you know, I was like, no, that's too risky. But I just said, you know, I really need to honor my boundaries with this, and you have healing to do, and I'm not in a place to go into a connection with you right now. Because I know that he's not in a place either, really, to have a connection. And so I really honored myself, and even speaking to on the phone, my body, oh, you got to listen to your body. But my body was just feeling fear. My stomach was churning, and it was nah, this is I just can't, I can't, this fear, I just knew that this wasn't going to turn out well. My intuition, so on point. So that's the other point here, is listening to your intuition. When you're speaking with someone, really listening in to what is your body telling you. And is there a little thought in your mind, in the back of your mind, that's something's not right here. There's something that's holding me back here. And this may be a fear from the past, but you can tell whether it's a gut feeling, or it's in your head, right? It's in your head, and maybe it's a past fear that may not be true, right? But in your body, and you're listening to your body, you can feel that something's off, right? And this is not making him bad or wrong, but maybe it's my intuition saying, hey, this is not good for you right now. This is not what you need now. And I didn't feel safe. And so if I don't feel safe, how am I I can't be in an intimate connection with someone if I don't feel safe, right? So that was the other thing I had to look at. So really important to start looking at some red flags, and I'll do a separate video about red flags as well. But to be aware when this connection comes in, don't let a strong sexual chemistry connection bowl you completely over. Like, be in curiosity about it, and don't, and like, hold yourself back a bit. Like, when he's been texting me and calling me, I've been holding back on my replies and holding back, like, just to feel into what feels true for me, rather than just going all in. And the other piece I want to speak to is I've just come out of a connection with a man, a beautiful man, and it was a healthy connection, and the chemistry we had was different. Like, it was more of it wasn't like a fun, playful, flirty kind of feeling. It was more a depth feeling. Like, we would have these deep conversations, and the intimacy we had was really like, it wasn't like that kind of chemistry where it's just like so intense and you just want to jump each other's bones and you just want to like go crazy. It wasn't really like that. This was more like just sensual and heart connected and deep and slow, and neither of these is better than the other, right? There's a part of me that really loves the depth. And there's a part of me sometimes that wants more playful and cheeky, And then there's times that I want all of that at once, right? So both men brought different energies, and which I really loved, that I could explore these different energies. But with the first connection, what happened there is that past stuff did keep coming up from his past relationships that he needed to work through, and he's someone that's willing to work through it. And one of the things, one of the reasons we decided to end the connection was that he wanted to be able to explore with different women, and he wanted to be able to, he's in an explorative phase in his life. And for me, I'm in a different phase in my life. And so it was just kind of like a mismatch. But what also happened is he started to pull his energy away, which then actually triggered me into like some abandonment stuff and some rejection stuff that got brought up, which made me go into more of this like, oh, let's sort this out, let's talk about it, which then kind of made him pull away more. I'm going to talk more about pulling away, what's going on when a man pulls away in another video. But what happened was that like it kind of like, it disconnected us. And so what had happened is, so I came out of that, and in the last 6 weeks, I've just been processing and healing and looking at myself and my shadows and like looking at those wounds and like doing this deep dive, right? And then this other man comes along who then is like, I want to give you everything. I'm like, look at this connection. Look at like, you're amazing. Like, and like all the things that I've been wanting to hear at the end of this connection with this other man, this man is now giving me. So it would be so easy for me to go, wow, look at this guy's just like adoring me, and to go into that, maybe even as an avoidance of what this other guy wasn't able to give me towards the end of our connection. And so I'm seeing that, like I'm a complete observer, right? I'm like, okay, let me just sit back and look at what's going on here, instead of like, oh, I'm just gonna go with this new connection because it's fun and exciting and like the chemistry and it's intense. It's like, no, I'm gonna sit back and I'm gonna look at this because I've been here before and I know how this turns out, and it is not pretty, right? And what I had to look at is like, what are my red flags? What are my boundaries? What is my intuition telling me? And all of it was saying, there's a lot of red flags here. My boundaries were saying, no, this connection is like this is not going to be good for you right now. Like, you have to honor yourself. You have to be with yourself. You've still got some processing to do. You've still got some healing to do. And I had to say no, right? And it was like not an easy no. Like, it was like a real like, as much as I really want to explore this connection, I need to honor myself and where I'm at and what I'm available to, and I'm not available for this right now, right? And the boundary pieces, like I don't really want to, I'm not prepared to be with someone who is still holding resentment and is going through healing. And because I also know I've had the pattern of being a rescuer before, and I'm not prepared to go there. I'm not prepared to be someone's rescuer. And as an empath, it is like natural, like almost like subconscious to like, someone tells me something's going on, it's like, oh, I get into my coach and I get into healing, and it's like, oh, well, this is what you need to do. Da, 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 da. If you keep doing that over and over in a relationship with someone, it's going to create this rescuer pattern. And I've done that before, and I'm not prepared to do that before. And again, that's another boundary, right? Because it doesn't work out well, right? So knowing all of this, when you go into a connection, you meet someone, is key. You have to know red flags. You have to know what your boundaries are. You have to be able to honor your boundaries, communicate your boundaries. And there was this piece of me yesterday that was like really torn, and last night I was supposed to see him, right? He was going to give me a massage. He was going to make me dinner. Like, we were going to watch some movies. And I was like, there's this part of me that would really love that, because, like, you know, I love that stuff, right? But I knew in my heart of hearts that wasn't honoring to me. So it was like I wasn't prepared to have a short-term gain for what may have been long-term suffering. I'm just not prepared, right? And I know, because this is the thing. I have such a high value for, like, exploring intimacy and exploring connection that, you know, I have given my power away in the past. And so this is the part. This is the time where I get to choose differently, where I get to show up differently, where I stop re-wounding myself, where I know what I want and what qualities that I want in someone and how they show up. And if someone doesn't align with that, that's a no for me, right? I know what hasn't worked in the past. I know how it's turned out. And I now know that this is a no for me, right? Even when the chemistry is so freaking intense. That's where you have to trust, and you have to say no, because guess what? Guess what happens then? The universe goes, okay, you're honoring your boundaries now, you valuing yourself, you're loving yourself, and guess what? Guess what? That's going to show up in the next connection as your mirror, okay? And the next person that comes along is going to be like even better, even more amazing, because they are going to be someone who knows their boundaries, honors themselves, values themselves, and loves themselves, because you do, because you are the mirror. They show up as your mirror, right? And you got to look at that, right? So I know that by me saying no to this creates possibility for something even better, right? For even more in alignment, which is not really the point of saying no, but it's just saying, like, ultimately, I'm not here for a short-term quick fix. I'm here for a long-term honoring connection, first with myself, right? And so when I say no, I say yes to me. I say no to someone, I say yes to me. So just remember that when you're saying no, you're saying yes to you. The other piece I want to speak to here is around boundaries. So when I said no, this has come from a place of healthy boundaries. And what I've seen is that some people, very commonly, and this was my experience, have been under-boundaried in the past. So what they've done is they have overgiven, they've rescued, they've given away their power, like given too much of their time and energy, completely lost themselves because they've given so much and put so much attention on the other person or helping the other person. Maybe this other person was an energy vampire. Maybe they were a narcissist, you know, like maybe, and that's why. And they completely suck the life out of you, right? And what happens is when you've been under boundaried before, and you've done it many, many, many times, usually, you go, I'm not going to do this anymore. So I'm going to go and I'm going to be over-boundaried. And I'm not going to allow anyone in. And no one's going to suck my energy. And I'm never going to give my power away. And I'm just going to, like, you put this fortress around you and you stop letting people in. And you just start saying no. And this may be unconscious as well. You may have this fuck off vibe to people. I've noticed this, that I've had this, like, where I would go out and there'd be men. And no man would approach me. And I was like, is there something wrong with me? Maybe I'm not attractive enough. And I'm like, no, I have this fuck off, like, wall of protection around me that is just like, basically, don't fucking come near me. and they feel that, right? So if you've got a fuck off energy around you, that's something you need to look at, because you're being over-boundaried with your energy. And over-boundaried with your heart. And you're not letting people in. Yeah, Emily. A shout out to Emily, actually. Emily's one of my mentors from the Love Coach Academy. She's amazing. Taught me lots of this stuff around boundaries. Like, big piece. She's like, so yeah, shout out to you, Emily. Thank you so much. You'd be so proud of me, Emily. I honored my boundaries massively yesterday. Massively. So really proud of myself. And my little girl, my little inner child is really proud of me, because she's just like, yes, like, it's like completely shifting these patterns that I've had in the past of being under-boundaried. So it's looking at whether you're over-boundaried as well. And I've been experienced this in a connection with a man where he had been over-boundaried and so afraid to lose himself that it was hard for me to fully express myself, because he would be like, oh, I don't want to take responsibility for your emotions. And I'm like, I'm not asking you to, I'm just asking you to hear me. And he would be like, oh, no, because he's over-boundaried, because in the past, he had been under-boundaried and taking responsibility for his ex's emotions. And so it was really hard for me, because I was like, and I felt like I couldn't express myself. And that was hard because he just didn't want to take it on, which was not what I was asking, right? I was just asking to be heard. And this is common for a lot of men, take responsibility for women's emotions, take it on. Same with empaths, take it on. So it's about finding the middle, like the middle ground of what's my healthy boundaries? When am I being over-boundaried? And you may be over-boundaried in some areas of your life and under-boundaried in other areas, right? So really being clear on what your healthy boundaries are. Now, this is something that I teach and take people through. I teach people specifically like knowing their red flags, knowing their boundaries, knowing like when they're under-boundaried, over-boundaried, knowing physical boundaries, energetic boundaries. So we've got different types of boundaries, and how to have these, and even wording, communication, how to communicate your boundaries. A lot of people find it very difficult to communicate their boundaries because they don't want to offend people. So how to do that with compassion. I teach this at my Integrated Women's event. We do a whole section on boundaries and learn how to feel our boundaries in our body as well. So that's actually next week. It depends when you watch this video, but so I do that, but I also do online as well. So if anyone is interested to really explore, like really understanding their boundaries, and I can't even tell you how massive boundaries are, like key, because your boundaries, right? So basically, this is how it works. You have your values and your needs, right? And then you have your integrity. So your integrity comes from your values and your needs. And then your integrity is your boundaries. So your boundaries is what helps you keep you in integrity, and so it keeps you aligned with your values and your needs. And you'll know when you go out of integrity, you'll feel it, and it means you've gone out of your values. And it means that either a boundary, you have crossed a boundary, your own boundaries, you crossed someone else's boundaries, or maybe you don't even have boundaries, right? And then we usually blame the other person. It's like, no, you actually didn't have healthy boundaries in place, and you're shitty at that person, but really, like, you haven't had the boundaries in place, and maybe that person has crossed a boundary, and that's when you need to, like, have that conversation, right? So I went into a lot of boundary stuff there, but this is so freaking important. Like, you have to, like, boundaries are, like, key, like, massive piece of your life that you need to really have in check if you want to have happy, healthy relationships. Like, it's just key, and prevent yourself from getting hurt and heartbreak with people that don't honor your boundaries, which, by the way, if you meet anyone that's like narcissistic, they do not honor boundaries. It's like no boundaries, and they will never honor your boundaries. So you try putting boundaries in place with narcissists, does not work. It's not going to work. So really important is that piece of boundaries. So if you want to know more about boundaries, you want to explore your boundaries, please feel free to PM me. If you want to know more about my Integrated Women's event, it's here on the Gold Coast. Message me, but I also do it as an online program as well for men and women. I have an online program version. It's called my I Am Love program. And there's a whole section on boundaries in there, which is like so important. And these are the keys to preventing yourself, re-wounding yourself, and getting hurt in a connection again. Because how you set up the foundation at the start of a connection will tell you how that relationship is going to end up. So if you start giving your power away, you don't honor your boundaries, you don't listen to red flags, then, and you don't know, you have to know all that stuff right before, which comes from healing your past. How you get to know your boundaries and your red flags is healing from your past relationships, and seeing and being self-responsible and seeing mirrors and seeing how you gave your power away, how you show up. I also have this that you can discover from doing my free 5-day Heal Your Love Wounds program, which is tinyurl.com/5 days to love. I'll put the link on the video as well. And there's a section on there on looking at how did I give my power away, and you know, from that place is where you really discover your boundaries, is looking at how you didn't have boundaries in the past. Awesome. Wow. Had a lot to say on this, but mostly I like really proud of myself, because this is where we stop. Yeah, Adam. So on that one, so I would be looking at how you gave your power away. So if you're using words like I'm over being burnt, I'm sick of being hurt, this means that you're like, there's a victimization in that, so you're not empowered, which is, there's nothing, like it's not wrong or bad, it just means that to become empowered, you need to go into healing what's happened, which I know you've started because you're starting the 5 days, but it's like looking at some of the feeling the emotions, feeling the anger and the rage of the pain that has happened in past relationships, and then before, you have to do that first, and then going into well, how did I give my power away? How did I show up in a way that may have enabled that person's behavior? So that's in the 5 days as well. So yeah, go do that, and that'll really help you to see that. And then you create your boundaries from that place. Callum, hi Callum. Yeah, totally. Boundaries, so important. Like boundaries, so important. I'll also be talking about this in my book that I'm writing, which I'm procrastinating on. So I really need to do that. But there'll be a boundaries section in there as well. So yeah, so I'll put the links here for that stuff that I've mentioned. Yeah, cool. All right. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out, comment below, and I'll reply as soon as I can. It's been so great to share this, and I feel like I'm keeping myself super accountable by sharing it. Because there is this kind of part of me in my brain that's like, oh, it'd be so good to just explore some stuff. And then I'm like, no, EJ, no. It's like I had to get my big girl pants on, and it's like my little girl inside is like, oh, but I want to explore the connection. And my mature EJ that is like, no, this is not healthy for you, is the one that's making the decisions here. So check in with who is making the decision. Is it your little girl, little boy inside, or is it the adult you that is like, no, I know that this isn't healthy for me? That's who you need to listen to. Be your own parent, okay? Be your own parent, and be your own client as well. So for me, I would look at, if someone was coming to me as a client with this, or a friend, what advice would I be giving them? What would I be saying to them? And I need to follow that, because I've got to stay in integrity. And my integrity is far more important than a connection with someone that may not be in alignment, it isn't in alignment for me, right? So we've got to start looking at that. What is an alignment? What's an integrity for me? And what do I deserve, right? So, Carlin, how can you ask your partner about their boundaries? Okay, so I've got a video on boundaries if you want to share that. It's ejlove.com/boundaries. It's like a 20-minute video that you can give them if you like. But also I would be looking at values. What are their values? What are their needs? Like, what's important to them? You know, and the boundaries will help them stay in meeting their values and needs, right? And just check in, or you know, really just you can just sit down and, you know, I guess my question to you is, does it feel vulnerable for you to ask them about their boundaries? It's like, what is important to you? That's where you discover what they're, you know, and because their boundaries will keep them within what's important to them, right? So that's what I would be looking at, yeah. And if there's vulnerability around that, go to the conversation with, I'm really curious, You know, I'm really curious to know what's important to you, and what do you need to help you keep your values, like, or to help you meet those needs, right? What do you need? And also, if it's vulnerable, start the conversation with, this feels really vulnerable for me to ask you, but I'd love to know what your boundaries are. And that person might not even know, right? And there might be something that, are you open to explore this? Because I really want to be able to honor your boundaries. You know, I want to know what's important to you, you know? So yes, those few questions will really, really help. But feel free to reach out if you need anything further on that. Yeah. Wow, this ended up being a lot about boundaries. It's because it's so important, right? All right, loves, I'm going to go now. I'm going out to breakfast with a beautiful friend of mine who's visiting from Bali. Shout out to Robin. I love you. And if you want me to do any videos on anything, guys, let me know if you've got any questions. Like, yeah, I'd love to share more on all this kind of stuff. All right, have an amazing, amazing day. Bye.